Nerderotic.com.
Welcome back to Nerderotic. My name is Gary Beekler, and I come to you from Nerderotic.com. And unfortunately, we need to talk about Star Trek Discovery Season 2, Episode 4, an Obol to Charon or an Obol to Charon, and beyond that, I don't really care. Yes, I did a live stream directly after the episode airs, as we do every week. Link will be in the description, but this video is for those of you who do not want to sit through the live streams. Now, after that live stream, a very interesting video dropped from Midnight's Edge concerning Star Trek canon. Good job, Andre, Tom, and Rob. Put together some pretty convincing circumstantial evidence stating that Star Trek Prime canon is not Star Trek canon, and it's something that Bad Robot invented for licensing reasons. Doomcock also reported on this 6 months ago. We will talk about that at the end of this video, but let's get into this particular episode. I was watching Anti-Trekker's live stream this morning, and I saw some division concerning whether it sucked or whether it sucked less. And yeah, I think it sucked less. I will lean towards the sucked less, but unfortunately, that's as good as this show will ever get. This episode was written by 5 people: Jordan Nardino, Gretchen J. Berg, Aaron Herberts, who were both fired, Alan B. McElroy, Andrew Colville did the teleplay. Colville has written for the 4400, so at least he has some sci-fi experience, and McElroy has written for the Vampire Diaries. And of course, Jordan Nardino has written for the Gilmore Girls and Desperate Housewives. This episode is a prime example of why this show can never be good. So we meet number 1, Rebecca Romaine, which was one of the good things in this episode, and we also had an explanation for the holograms. They were having a problem on the Enterprise, so Captain Pike orders number 1 to have all of the holograms ripped out of the Enterprise, and they're going to start using old-fashioned view screens. You can explain things, and that's fine, but it needs to make sense. We'll see how this one pans out. Then, just to prove that this show is basic on every level, when number 1 orders some food in the replicator, it's a cheeseburger. Oh yeah, the old beautiful woman eating a cheeseburger. That's not cliche at all. They discuss Mr. Spock, and apparently Spock is on a level 1 priority, which is unprecedented for a line officer, so they find this unusual. Number 1 says she's not going to let him go without a fight, and the digging she is doing is unsanctioned by Starfleet. More broken rules in this episode because that's what they like to do in this show. And then we don't see number 1 for the rest of the episode. This episode was filled with storylines. I believe there was 4. Now, there's 2 main ones, and there's 2 B storylines that take up a lot of screen time, which is the fundamental problem with the show. It tries to do too much with very little talent. So we have Tilly's storyline with the Black Booger. We have Mikey Spock having to deal with her relationship with Spock. We have a giant sphere in space, which I will get to. And then we have Saru catching a cold. Stamets and Tilly are investigating the big Black Booger, and we get our obligatory Tilly positive affirmation after she laments the fact that she probably wasn't a very good friend to May. The next scene, there's an officers meeting where Michael Burnham says she has cross-referenced the Red Angel with all known alien species and came up with nothing. Then we find out Saru has a cold, and then Linus has the comedic hot take of having a cold sucks. Oh my god, this show is so funny. Some of that trademark Star Trek humor they were talking about in the New York Times article that was paid for. Pike dismisses everyone and then has a private conversation with Michael Burnham and tells her that number 1 had gotten some information about Spock. They have a warp signature from a shuttle he stole from the Starbase 5 Psycho Ward. Then Mikey Spock does something I totally agree with. She says she doesn't want to insert herself in the Spock situation. She thinks she might make it worse. I totally agree with this logic. Pike unfortunately does not, but so far it looks like she will stay out of Spock's life. The Discovery is on an intercept course to Spock's shuttle, but then something pulls them out of warp, and it's a big blobby sphere thing that has a multiphasic stasis field around it that maybe they'll have to reverse the polarity of the quantum tachyons to fix. But this big blobby spacey thing kind of reminds me of the days prior to superheroes fighting big energy beams shooting up into the sky. It reminds me of superheroes fighting big blobby cloud things like Parallax from Green Lantern and the Galactus Cloud from Fantastic Four. The Big Sphery thing answers the Discovery's hail by overwhelming the Universal Translator, and I have a question about this, and I am not a Trekologist by any stretch of the imagination, but unless there's a neural link in everybody's head, and at this point I thought the Universal Translator ran through the communication system, it might be different on the Discovery. I can understand people hearing different languages. I don't really understand why people were actually speaking them. Unless maybe it was the sphere putting something into their head. And then I remembered this is written by Star Trek Discovery writers, and this is about as much thought as I want to put into it, but go ahead and comment below. Saru comes in a very good scene. Doug Jones is great in this show, and he's so wasted in this show. He is brilliant as Saru. I do like Saru, and I do like Doug Jones despite his dumb origin. And he fixes everything, and he looks like that one person everybody has to call in the office to come and fix the computers or the printer when it's not working, and it was kind of a funny scene, so I'll give you credit there. Then Stamets and Jet Reno meet, and I might call her Janet Reno at some point. It might be a mistake in this, and I'm not going to bother editing it out. Remember Waco. And they have an annoy-off. And I'd have to say Jet Reno wins with her monotone, unfunny dialogue. A very poor attempt to be the Orville. And in one of the funnier self-aware moments, possibly in Star Trek Discovery, the Discovery is infected with a virus. Yes, STD has been infected with a virus. Turns out Saru's cold is something a little more. It's called the Vihari, and it's what happens to the Kelpians when they're about to be cold by the Baul. If you don't know what I'm talking about, don't see the short trek. Go ahead and watch my review for that short trek. Link will be in the description. It will save you time and money. This causes his threat ganglia, or as somebody coined in our live chat yesterday, deathsticles. And it turns out Saru is dying, and it's possible that the sphere has triggered this. The sphere, we find out, is a 100,000-year-old being, and it is causing this virus. Now, in the B plot, something very similar is happening to Tilly. The virus has caused the booger to be released from its chamber in engineering, and it has reattached itself to Tilly. Amidst all the chaos, we have time for a nice dramatic soap opera scene between Michael Burnham and Saru. Michael Burnham asks Saru why he didn't tell her she was dying, and then we get, well, some of that trademark Star Trek Discovery soap opera dialogue. How do I explain to the woman who has to fight over and over again for her very next breath that I am from a race that submits? Ugh. It reminds me of all those times Dr. McCoy, Scotty, Sulu, Chekhov, and Spock were constantly telling Jim Kirk he was awesome and brilliant and amazing. This episode is less bad, and they did make a sincere attempt to have the crew work together for problem solving with the sphere and the virus. Then I noticed something else. All the men must have died in the war, as they tend to do. Michael Burnham goes down to engineering to see if she can boost power to the shields, and she finds out it's partitioned off due to the virus. Stamets is in full-on panic mode because the booger has attached itself to Tilly. Then he figures out, with the help of Jet Reno, that he has a harmonic balancer doohickey thing that he uses to talk to the Shroom network, and he can connect it to Tilly's brain to talk to the booger to see what it wants. This makes me think about the Universal Translator again. Then I remembered I don't care. And then Michael Burnham figures out that maybe the sphere wants to talk to somebody, and she runs away, and they have to drill a hole into Tilly's head to talk to the booger. And all of what I'm about to describe happens in the next few minutes of the episode. Through Saru, we find out that the sphere pulled the Discovery out of warp so it wouldn't be forgotten. It didn't want to die unremembered. Earlier in the episode, Saru did the same thing with Michael Burnham, asking her to take all of his logs to the Federation for when General Order 1 does not apply to his homeworld anymore. Saru was able to figure out what the sphere wanted because Kelpians are hardwired with empathy. And if you've been watching the show from the beginning of Season 2, you know that this is a theme that gets brought up again and again because they tell us, they don't really show us. We had Sarek bringing Michael Burnham home to teach Spock empathy. Spock had to leave the psych ward because he was having difficulty with his empathy. It sounds like to me, Alex Kurtzman has recently been to therapy and he learned a new word, one that isn't that well known in Hollywood: empathy, the ability to understand and share the feelings of another person. Stamets and Reno drill a hole in Tilly's head, and we find out the May Booger is a living being from the Shroom network. And Stamets jumping in and out of the Shroom network is hurting their environment and possibly killing her people. He asks for forgiveness and to let go of Tilly. Tilly is consumed by the May Booger, but then Jet, Reno, and Stamets free her for now. But she seems to be okay. Then we have a very, very, very long scene between Saru and Michael Burnham as he is dying. He gives her his sister's blade, and he instructs her to cut off his threat ganglia or his deathsticles while he dies, and that will end his life, and he asks her to do it. It's a very long dramatic scene. Doug Jones is great in it. Sonequa Martin Green, it's probably one of her better acting jobs, still not very good. As she goes to cut off the deathsticles, they fall off. His testicles dropped. Basically, that's what happened. And basically, Saru turns into a man at this point. He feels his own power, and it seems like that would actually improve the character. But the message in that imagery was not lost on me at all. We also see the sphere explode and die, and it doesn't take the Discovery with it. Why? Because it reversed the polarity of its stasis field. Quantum tachyons not included. As a bonus, the Federation also got 100,000 years of observations from this creature, completely cataloged. And the last thing it saw was where Spock's shuttle was going. How convenient. As a dying wish, when Saru was dying, he asked Michael Burnham to mend her relationship with Spock. So Michael Burnham talks to Captain Pike and tells him that she does want to insert herself in his life, and my hopes are dashed. Final scene has Jet, Reno, and Stamets tripping on shrooms because they had some spore stuff shot in their face. Tilly disappears. They can't find her. Turns out the May Booger grabbed her back into the booger that was on the floor, and that was an entrance into the shroom network, and she's trapped there. Probably one of the better episodes of Star Trek Discovery, and it still sucked. Why? There was too much stuff going on. I am going to compare this to A Happy Refrain, the brilliant Orville episode that came out last week. It had 2 storylines. Bortus wanted a mustache, which took about 3 minutes of screen time, and the rest of the time was spent with Claire and Isaac and their dating and the relationship and the crew there to react to their story, to help their story along, to make it feel genuine, to have it build throughout the episode. That didn't happen here. Nothing is earned in this show. It is written on such a basic level. There are no stakes at any time. Why? Because it's had so much creative turmoil. It's a miracle that they even got this show out, to be honest with you. They are just stalling for Spock, and they wasted a great opportunity to have a Saru-focused episode. Also, I completely forgot number 1 was introduced at the beginning of the episode, but all she ended up doing, especially after all the articles that were written about her, was eat a cheeseburger and pass some information on to Captain Pike, who was also not in this episode very much. Concerning the Midnight's Edge video, in a nutshell, we have Star Trek Canon, which died in 2005, Star Trek Prime Canon, which was in the beginning of the 2009 movie, and that is Star Trek Discovery, and then we have the Kelvin universe. Does this bother you? Actually, we have 2 mirror universes now. We have Star Trek Canon Original Mirror Universe and the Star Trek Prime Mirror Universe. They are purposely trying to confuse the general public because real Star Trek fans are not going to be confused. And what I want to know is how you feel about it. Here we are again with Star Trek Discovery, course correcting, not really sure it knows what it wants to be. After that god-awful Point of Light episode, this was a step in the right direction, or was it? We didn't really get any resolution with Spock. We just know where he's going, and that's the overarching story. There was nothing with the Red Angel, so we just had Saru get sick and get better, Mikey Spock make a decision, we had the crew figure something out and get 100,000 years of information. That can't hurt. And we have the Tilly B. Booger story, which is a way to get rid of the Shroom Network, so Anas Abdeen doesn't have a chance to get some of the money from Season 2, which I think he does. By the way, link in the description, Anas Abdeen lawsuit update. I just did a video on it. Please check it out if you haven't already. And if you want to know what other people thought, please check out my live streams. That's why I do them, where you are the co-host, and you can join me every week after Star Trek Discovery airs live at 6:40 p.m. Pacific Time. Thanks for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe. Go to nerdrotic.com, and may the small folks sing songs of your greatness.
Nerdrotic.com. Please subscribe.